This is Nat Auten from the YMCA, and we've got the pleasure of sitting down with Coach Rick Barnes of the University of Tennessee basketball team. And I just can't tell you what an honor it is to sit with you today. Even if it's virtually, it's just a pleasure. And the point today is just have a little conversation briefly about faith, uncertainty, and leadership. We hope it provides inspiration to those that watch it. And I know Coach has always been that way for me. So, Coach, I'll let you tee us off first. How are you and your family doing?
You know what, Nat, we're doing okay. We're like everyone. We try to be very, very cautious, very conscientious of everything that we do, and I think that's what we have to do going forward. I think that we all have to know ourselves. We have to know our families. We have to know who we're around, and I do believe in the social distancing. I think that we've got to get back at it, and but we've got to do it in the right way. And I think the biggest mistake we would make is we act like this is just over and done with, because it's not. But also think that if we don't get back at it, the mental side of this is going to harm us more than maybe the virus itself. And I would just encourage people to pay attention, do it the right way. There's nothing wrong with wearing masks. If you feel good about it, wear them. And I would. And maybe you're not thinking that you need it, but you might think in terms of other people. And I think you've got to have respect for people that feel like, hey, you know what? I have a mother and father that's elderly, and I don't want to do anything to take something home to them. And so I'm wearing a mask, not only for myself, but for my parents or my grandkids or whoever it might be.
Right. So quick question on uncertainty and the future ahead of us. And I think these questions apply whether you're a child care director at the Y, whether you're a McDonald's manager or a point guard at the University of Tennessee. So how do you think your leadership has changed through the years? And how do you think this crisis has changed you? So kind of two questions in one. How's it changed through the years? How's this crisis changing your leadership?
Well, first of all, about the crisis, and it is a crisis because we understand what it's affected the world. It's a pandemic. But the uncertainty with me is that I'm not uncertain because of the God that I follow. I think that He is sovereign. I think everything is under His providence. And so, from that point of view, that's where I put my faith and my trust that, we're going through this for a reason. And hopefully when it's all said and done, that He's going to be most glorified in the way we handle this. But in terms of leadership, and I think you're right what you said. I don't care if you're a basketball coach at the University of Tennessee or you're the director of the YMCA in Hickory. Your job means a lot to you. And just like the people that you work with, their jobs mean a lot to them. And so I've always believed that everybody's important. And I don't care where it is, what level. For instance, there are so many high school coaches that I have met through the year that if they would have chosen the route of going into college coaching and would have been given the opportunity, they would have been ultra successful. And I believe that about people in a lot of areas, but God has a calling for all of us. And so there's some wonderful things that are done in my profession at the junior high level, the elementary level, the high school level, where there's volunteers that are coaching young people that, and I can tell you from how much I've talked about what being a part of the Y meant to me growing up.
Right.
But I was asked yesterday I was on a call about, some of when I knew I wanted to coach. And I knew I wanted to coach at an early age because once I got to junior high school at College Park Junior High School, my heroes today, and I didn't realize it at the time, are those 8th and 9th grade teachers and my high school coaches, and some of those teachers, they, looking back, are my real heroes. And when I look back at them, when I realized they had great passion for what they did. Whether it was Alice Watts in her algebra class, she took it very seriously that she wanted to see her students do well. Whether it was Alan Beam or Bill Johnson or Sam Davis or Joe Ryan or Mark Lyerly, David Kraft, Frank Barger, they really took their jobs extremely serious. And the one thing they wanted to do, and I like to think that the way I tell our players today, we don't want them to look back and have any regrets. And I look at those people back then. And so I would say to someone that's running your child care service there, their job's important. And they love it. And I'm sure. And so I think the key to all this is that, you got to treat people the right way and realize that wherever you are, whatever level you think you might be, you have a chance. If you can impact one life,
Right.
you've done something.
Yeah.
You remember the movie, It's a Wonderful Life? And Clarence said to George Bailey, "Hey, I just got to get my wings."
Yeah.
He got his wings by dealing with George Bailey. And so I think sometimes we've got to realize that we can get somebody's wings on, or get our wings. If it's just one person that we can help, we need to help that one person.
And I think from the why perspective, we've tried to take that, because we can certainly be discouraged that we haven't been able to open yet. But I think we can also look at the positive and say, hey, look at what we're able to do, when some might look at the why and say we're closed. So I certainly think there's value in that sentiment about getting your wings. I want to drop back and touch on one thing you said. You mentioned your faith, and as men of faith, I want to touch on that. What do you think? Our world for us has taught us somewhat to fear. How do you think we respond as people of faith to that fear?
Well, let me answer it like this about fear. I'm not sure exactly if I can answer about the fear part. I've heard a guy say before, I'm not afraid of death, but I'm afraid of dying.
Yeah.
And I think what someone would mean by that is, when you are a believer, you know that there's a much better place that we're going to end up in one day if we accept Jesus Christ as our Lord and Savior. But some of us, yeah, I can understand somebody saying the fear of dying, knowing that, what's it going to be like? Is it going to be a long, drawn out thing? Is it going to be instantly, whatever it may be? So I get that part. Actually, it was R.C. Sproul that said that. And so, I think that I don't think we can live in fear. I don't think you can do that. I think you've got to get up every day. And I do think the most important thing in life is that you get lost in the Word with every day. I think you've got to have that strength to go with you, because I can tell you, I'm guilty of going on a spiritual vacation, where when I was younger, I got caught up in the everyday drive of wanting to be great, and honestly putting the wrong thing in my head about reading things about what it takes to be successful, this, that, or whatever. I think what it takes to be successful is selling out to Jesus Christ being your treasure, and doing the best you can do in everything that you do, and in a way that you can bring, how can you be most glorified? And I think is how you bring glory to Him. Yeah. And so I don't know if I would, I don't think you can coach people out of fear. I think there's different motivations. Like some people say, some people respond better when with fear. Some people respond better when there's incentive. And we all know that the best motivation is self-motivation. Mm-hmm. So if you're chasing something just for the trophy, I think you're going to be disappointed a lot. I think if you're going after something because you're trying to prove to your mom, your dad, your coach that you can do more than you think, I think you're going to be disappointed. But I think if you can honestly look at yourself every day and say, I'm going to give it my best. If my best is good enough, I'm going to get it done. If it's not, I'm going to be able to hold my head high and know that I gave it my best. And I think when you have the self-motivation, it's passion. You get up every day thinking, what can I do today to make it better, leave it better today than I found it today? And I think if you have that thought, but I think if you get up every day with that fear, I think fear can wreak havoc. I mean, I've watched fear just demoralize people, and I've watched fear make people make bad decisions. And so how do you handle that? You know what? I think you've got to have a relationship with Jesus, where some days you just got to put an empty chair beside you and say, He's sitting right there. God, I got to talk to you about this. You got to help me with this, and you got to listen. You got to be willing to listen, but it's real. That fear is real, and don't think I'm making light of it, because I think stress, I think depression, I think all that's real. But some way, somehow, you've got to find a way to cope with it by maybe having an accountability partner or someone that you can talk to about it, where you can be very transparent.
And Coach, I think for me, I'd say I had a great conversation with our pastor, and we talked about being the light. during this time. We want people to come to the light, and we want people to be part of that. And so this might be the time where they get introduced to those concepts of Christianity. I think that's a beautiful thing. So this might be the time where somebody gets engaged with the why, and we light that fire for them. So I think so much of what you're saying, you got to do your best, and I think that's all people can ask for right now. And I think that's what we ask people every day. There's only one person that can be perfect, and we know we're not it. So I think there's just beauty in that message. So I appreciate you open up your heart a little bit on that. Drop back and talk about one thing you said there. I have a great mother and father, and I've been blessed in a lot of senses. So I would like to hear from you if your mom was on this call, and I know she's only a block that way, so I could go get her if I needed to. What would you say her version of your best leadership moment would be? What would your mom say your best leadership moment would be?
I think, and my mom just celebrated her 90th birthday last week. I actually came to Hickory, and we just had my brothers really were there, and Dr. Page and his wife were there with us, and just a small party because turning 90 is quite an accomplishment, to be quite honest with you, even though her mom lived to be about 100. I think when you go back to that, I think about this. I can remember when I was in the 5th grade, we won a little trophy from winning the 4th and 5th grade championship at Grandview High School. But I think that probably the biggest thing would be back in 1973 when we were having racial tensions, and myself and another student had to stand up in front of our student. I was part of the Junior Human Relations Council, and stood up and made a speech about where we were, and really about everybody's lives matter. We need to be above all this, and that was a very tense time in Hickory, and at that time all I knew was Hickory, but it was a tense time everywhere, probably pretty much. And I think that day she probably would have said maybe that was a big moment where I stood there, and it was a prepared speech. I just basically read it. We had all written together into Junior Human Relations Council, but I would assume that's what it was. She would tell you too, as a kid, I was a little devil, that I was one black sheep in the family. That when I say black sheep, I was always out doing stuff, playing sports. I spent a great deal of my lifetime there where you are in that building. From the time I first was introduced to the Y, I think I was in the 8th grade, and from the time that I went there, I don't think I missed a day. From the time we'd get through with practice from 6 o'clock, and I think they closed it at 10, I was there. And if we didn't have basketball practice, I'd have been there from 3 o'clock on, 3:15, and we got out of school at 3:15. But I can tell you this, growing up in Hickory, I had some mentors that really, they talked about the things we're talking about, leadership and trying to do the right thing. And I'm really grateful for my childhood there in Hickory.
Yeah. So as you talk about growing up in Hickory and you start thinking about your mentors, I think trust is something you have to have, not only with a mentor, but anybody that's on your team. What do you do to create trust, either with your players, your administration staff, everybody that might be kind of around, the engine that is Rick Barnes? So how do you create trust, especially during times like this? Like, people are looking to you almost for leadership. So how do you create that trust?
Time spent with individuals. You got to, I go back, you mentioned about my mentors. I could tell you some great stories about how they stepped into my life, and I wasn't the best of students. I didn't particularly care much about an education, didn't know much about it. But I remember how Alice Watts told me, I'm not going to let you go to basketball practice until you do your homework. Right. And I said to her one day, well, you can't do that. And she said, yes, I can. And in the back of the room was Bill Johnson, my 9th grade coach. And he said, if you don't do your homework, you're not going to practice. And from the time that I started going in with her, and the time that just she and I, we were just together. And I'm telling you, there was a bond there that I will take to my grave, that I knew without question that this lady cared about me, all because she gave me time. I could say the same thing about Bill Johnson. He would come down to the center when I was there. It might just be he and I on Sunday afternoon there, but he came down and spent time with me. And I don't know why at the time, why God put these angels in my life, but he did. And at a time when looking back, I really needed it.
Sure.
And so like Nate, I don't have staff meetings. I'm not a big staff meeting person because one, I think people get off track. I think the people that have the more dominant personalities are going to speak up more. And so by that alone, there's a lot of people in the room that have great ideas that you never hear. And so what I do, I have a conversation every day with everyone on my staff. And I ask them, what do you think? I ask that question because I know what I think. I know what I know. And I know that I'm going to ultimately have to make a decision. But I want to hear from everybody, what do you think right now? It might be, and again, this goes down to players too. I'm going to touch each one of those guys every day and say, hey, what's going on? What's going on with you? And when I say that, you got to mean it because they'll know that you're just throwing the question out there, and you got to be a good listener. And I think that's a lost art at times.
Right.
And it's just letting people know you care. And the way you let them care, you're going to say, hey, what are you thinking? And they say something, let's talk about it.
Yeah. I always get a nugget, and that was my nugget for me, at least me personally. I feel like I invest a lot of time, but is it really quality time? Am I really present when I'm with people? Like, am I just trying to get to the next thing? So I think that's even something I could probably do much better job of, is being present and in the right time in the right places. So I think that's always a good reminder. Coach, question. I know it's on everybody's mind, and well, actually, I have two more questions. But first question: how do you think the NCAA is going to come out of this, and out for the good? I certainly think there'll be changes to the NCAA, but what do you think the good things are going to be that come out of this for people that love, whether it be NCAA basketball or NCAA football? Like, what are those things going to look like?
Nat, I don't know. I don't know the answer to that yet. I just know this, that at some point in time, we're going to get back to a new normal. And what I would say is what that's going to be, I'm not sure what it's going to be right now because we've taken a hit. There's no doubt about it. I just got off a call today with all the head coaches in the SEC talking about how the universities are all implementing different ways to get started. And even within our own conference, there's a lot going on that where people are seeing things differently and how it's going to work. I don't think we know. But you go back to when 9/11 happened, I was the kind of person that if my flight was taken off at 3 o'clock, I'm walking up to that gate, knocking on the door, like, hey, I'm here. And but then the new normal became, you have to be at the airport 2 hours earlier, which now, I think I would probably tell you as things have settled down from that, I get there probably, depending on the airport, an hour, but there's a new normal. I think that's going to come from this too. I think there's going to be a lot of good things that come out of it. I can see where people are going to take more seriously when they just got just a common cold or a flu, in terms of, I don't want to infect somebody else. I think you're going to see a lot of changes on campuses where kids are going to get up in the morning and if they're sick, they're going to be told not to come in. I think there will be sensors when a person walks in. We got it. So I think there's going to be a lot of the new normals. But basketball, the sad part of it has been really you've seen schools have already cut back seasons. Schools have already had to cut sports, and that's the tough part of it. That also tells you the importance of the two sports that make money, football and basketball, how important they are to universities. But we're not just talking sports now. We're talking the impact in students going to class. I've been on Zoom calls, and I think this is really interesting. Of all the Zoom calls I've been on with recruits, I've asked each one of them, if you had your choice now, would you rather be in a classroom with your peers or would you rather be doing a Zoom class? Every one of them has said they'd rather be in a classroom because they miss the interaction. Actually, yesterday, a person said to me, I miss being pushed. I miss being challenged more. And so I think one thing this has done is probably made us realize that we missed a lot of things that we probably took for granted.
Yeah.
We're looking around and we probably have learned that there's a lot of things we've wasted time in areas that we don't need to waste time. Mm-hmm. And we've got more time to do things than we think we have. I think it's been a wonderful time of being able to be with kids and family. I've had so many coaches talk about that. That's been a great thing that they literally have gotten to spend time with their kids. You know, my kids are grown. I certainly miss my grandkids, but there's just so many. I think there's been some positive things that come out of it in terms of we maybe needed to put the brakes on. We were going all over the place in a lot of different areas, but
Right.
but I do know this: we've got a young generation that's going through something right now that, Lord, hope they never have to do it again. But this is what, going back to what you said, this is when we've got a chance to really let our light shine, and we got a chance to do that. And I like to think too that maybe God has used this time, because I do know you look out there, people talk about how church numbers are up from watching Zoom things. People, internet, they've looked, who is Jesus? Tell me, who's God? So if it's a time where more people have come to faith and have certainly taken the time to see what it's all about, it's been well worth it.
Yeah, I think that could be another one of the pluses that we see come out of this. I think that's a great thing. Coach, you're one of the all-time favorite people of Hickory. You're one of the favorite sons. You're one of the, I'd say, godfathers of the Y in some respects. Is there anything we can do to help you?
No, I just want you all to keep doing what you're doing and understand that you're impacting lives that you don't even know 10, 5, 10, 15 years from now what that life is going to do. And I will say this, you just impact one a day. If everybody did, just think about how that would grow. But I know you're impacting more than that. But I just hope for you all that you can get back up and running, because right now our youth need the attention that you all are giving them. Believe me, they need it. But you think about it, Nat, it's no different than when I was growing up. I needed it. And so everybody thinks there's more challenges today, no doubt about that. But in terms of the basic needs that people need, they need to be loved on. They need to be told that they can do some things. They need to hear the story about Jesus. And so I want people there to understand your job is important,
Sure.
more important than you might realize. And whatever it is, just keep doing what you're doing. And even, like I said, each day find a way to leave it better than you found it.
Yeah. Well, Coach, as we wrap up, I just want to say thank you. I know it inspires me, so I hope it inspires everybody else when they get to see this message. And I know I speak for all of Hickory when I say this, but we love you. We can't wait to see you again soon. Maybe when you're back in town for the 94th birthday, we can go to Windy City Grill together and get a hot dog. But I can't thank you enough. It's just been great. So thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate you having me. God bless you.